This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, James, we're going to play design win and design disaster. So just tell me if it's a win or a disaster for all of these websites that I'm going to tell you.
You got it.
You can give me a one sentence reason if you want to, but if you don't, you just want to say if it is a disaster or if it's a win, that's also cool. So the first prompt that I have for you is a website for a psychic who is a pet. And you get like animated animals telling you your tarot card readings, your horoscopes, and all that.
Nice. I would totally click on that. I would totally go for that. That's so unique. I don't think I've heard anything remotely like that.
Why not? I agree. It's pretty creative. Next one, a portfolio site, but you have to solve a puzzle every time you want to find the contact page for someone.
Absolutely not. No, I'm passing on that. Sorry, you're asking way too much of this user for that.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. Next one is a pizza restaurant website, but they have no menu. They have a video of a pizza being made on loop, and you have to call them.
Ooh. See, I'm a huge pizza fan, and pizza runs deep in my family, so I'm intrigued by the lack of opportunity. I would split that down the middle. Like I'm curious enough to want to check it out and make that call, but not maybe put off a little bit by the fact that I don't have any information on what it is, and it could just be some guy sending a video around of him making pizza.
I feel like it's a nightmare for introverts, like for people who hate phone calls.
Totally. Oh my gosh, you're gonna require me to you're gonna be social? No.
Yeah. Next one is an online bookstore where the whole website looks like a scroll that you have to unroll, like one of those Egyptian scrolls.
Oh yeah. I feel like something like that existed when websites were like first coming out. Someone was like, "Oh, wouldn't this be such a great idea?" I'm gonna pass on that one. I'll pass on that.
I didn't think that one was that creative either. But
can't you see someone like initially in like the world of web design when websites were becoming a thing, being like, "Oh, you know what would be so interesting?" When you look back at like really poor UX and like just creative ideas that aren't, you know?
I know. I actually so this is really random, but I don't know if you experienced this, but do you remember when Tumblr had like a big surge in like 2012? Like I was a teenager, and I obviously was like obsessed with Tumblr. And I had no idea that like to customize your Tumblr blog, you had to like do coding. And I was so obsessed, I started coding. And I had no idea that that's what I was doing. I was just Googling like, how can I put my font pink, you know? And I started like, really into HTML and like doing a bunch of stuff just to like do these codes for this Tumblr blog. No idea what I was doing. I had no knowledge. I had no idea that I was getting into like web development and web design until years later I learned about it. Because I was taking tutorials on using like HTML and then JavaScript. And like, I remember seeing a lot of people like within my research, and they were just talking about like what was trendy for like websites at the time, because I was trying to use that for my Tumblr blog. And a lot of it was like that, like scrolls.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to think that Tumblr could have sparked an entire generation of developers just because people wanted to know how to customize their own, account. Like I'd be curious to know how many really went into that because they were so hell bent on like trying to make it so unique. But that's really cool. Good for you.
Yeah, that was me. And I always kind of had that kind of seed planted in my head of like, should I have like gone into web development? Because like The thing is that
maybe it was your calling. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I was so young and I was so stupid. I had no idea that what I was so into was like coding. Until years later, when I saw my friend who was doing computer science, and I saw that that's what he was doing, and I'm like, he was like asking a question. I had the answer, and I was like, oh, you just do that. Like that's so simple. And he's like, how do you know this? You're a politics major. And I'm like, and then it all kind of clicked, and then I was like, maybe I should have like gone into web design a little bit more.
Think about the agency you could have created if you were, becoming a web developer for people's Tumblrs.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, like I kind of was, because I don't, this is such a weird tangent, but like I don't know if you remember, you could make templates on Tumblr, and then
Totally.
like some people would sell them. I didn't sell them. I would just like, because I was kind of Tumblr famous. Like the thing is that I was so into Tumblr that I started getting a lot of traction because I was so hell-bent, like you said, on making my blog just perfect.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would come in and they would ask me like how I did the stuff that I was doing. Like I had like a really big mouse that you had. And I would explain it to them, and then I started making templates of like blogs, and then I was like, here are my templates, you guys can use them. And then I would like just have them there for people to use, probably still there because I never deleted that Tumblr.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so really weird tangent, my story with web development, I guess. But
everyone's
guys,
got one.
welcome. James, welcome to Fully Managed. This is where we talk about marketing, we talk about business, and we give you guys tips, practicals to assist you in your business journeys. And you know me, the host, Daniela, and we have a really great guest today, James Weiss, right?
Weiss.
Yeah, Weiss from Big Drop. Hi, James. How are you doing?
How's it going? Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. I mean, we obviously got to know each other a little bit. You learned about me and my Tumblr days, and we talked about websites. But for the audience who is not familiar with you, what you do at Big Drop, can you tell us all about yourself? All we got to know.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the managing director of Big Drop. We are a full service digital agency headquartered in New York. And we have our service offering kind of spans, multiple elements of digital. Primarily, we're known in the website design and development space. That's really our core competency. But we have an entire branding and studio department that lends itself to everything we do on the website design and development front, and then certainly the digital marketing aspect of what we do, driving traffic, running ads, things like that. All of that can be found under one roof with our team.
Awesome. And you particularly at Big Drop, what is your role, or what are you most involved with?
Yeah, so I run the operation, the daily operation, as well as the administrative elements of the agency itself. But I also have a heavy hand to play in what we do strategically as an agency, as well as what the strategy should be for the client engagements that we have. So pretty much every client that comes to our doors, I've spoken to at least once for an initial call, and then once we welcome them into our production queue, whatever that may mean for them. I work very closely with the directors that run our departments to support them in making sure they can satisfy all of the engagement requirements, but also making sure that clients are having kind of nothing short of the best possible experience working with our team.
So I think what's interesting to me is that you guys are mostly known for website design. When I was doing research on Big Drop, that was what was popping up the most for me. It was like website, which I'm curious, because you said you also do other things. When you have a client come in, do you get people who are looking for website design and end up moving forward into more things like, say, like strategy and stuff? Or do you usually have people coming in for strategy and then moving on to website, or people who are just looking for like a whole package?
No, it's a good question. We actually have pretty much every single scenario that you mentioned. But mostly we have individuals, companies who are coming to us for an initial website project. And that inevitably, just through organic partnership, ends up becoming a much larger engagement that has, maybe a digital marketing element, ongoing collateral needs, so graphic design, and certainly the elements for SEO are huge for us. And we also go on to maintain and support any of the sites that we build, or any of the properties that we create. So it's not uncommon for a client to come through for one thing, but then our partnership obviously expands to include additional services they can take advantage of. Of course, we love those types of engagements because it allows us to flex our muscles a little bit more and grow alongside our clients who are looking to take that next step. But yeah, I mean, we're known primarily in the website design and development space, but we have clients that have come to us for digital marketing, not knowing that we do website development, which is always kind of a funny conversation. But in either capacity, I think we kind of see things from multiple lenses. If we're, working on a website design development engagement, we may see that with a digital marketing focus, just as we would see an SEO engagement with a website UX kind of component to it as well. So yeah, I mean, everything is kind of, commingling, so to speak.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is that they kind of all go in together. Like, I think if you want to have a good website, right, like a good website strategy, it really gets tied into what you're doing with your digital marketing.
100%.
And then you go into the result. I think a lot of people don't really see that. They kind of like tend to sort of group things in different things. But I'm like, I want to like ask you about this really specific scenario that I'm curious about, which is people who are not that knowledgeable, especially I think business owners who do like, I think I see this happen a lot with B2C people who they will have like a product, right? And they'll sell it and it's a common product. It's something that's appealing to the general public. And they don't necessarily have like that much technological or understanding, like digital understanding of things like digital marketing, SEO, website and stuff, and they just kind of want someone to do it for them because they're like, I just want to do my product, right? Like, let's say it's a toothpaste and it's like, I love making toothpaste.
It's so funny you said toothpaste because I literally thought of a toothbrush when you were like something that everyone has. And I was like, yeah, a toothbrush.
Yeah, like, that's what I was thinking. Like I feel like that happens a lot with like mundane things like that, where it's like, like I love the chemical components of my toothpaste, and yeah, like I couldn't sit down and tell you how to make a toothpaste, but in that same regard, that person doesn't know how to promote their toothpaste and like you could stand out in the market. And I feel like that's where you kind of have to come in, like as an agency, as like a company, and be like, okay, this is what happens. This is why this is important. This is what we do. And you start explaining things like SEO and like your website needs to be optimized for e-com and like all of these things. Do you see this scenario happen a lot? How do you guys handle it? I imagine that you do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny because entrepreneurs, especially in the B2C, landscape, they are themselves entrepreneurs. They're product focused. They're maybe customer focused, but the marketing component is always the piece that needs a little bit more love, and that's typically what we find with clients that come to us, is that they're looking for that to be handled either in a more transactive kind of way, or really on a consultative approach where we're kind of prescribing, have you thought about this? What are you doing around this area? And I think individuals like that really appreciate that. But I think you're right. I mean, there's so much confluence of what happens on the website side, certainly from a property perspective, the UX perspective, the conversion rate perspective, that it's almost like taking care of all that, not being able to service the elements of search and relevance and visibility, would kind of be doing them a disservice. So I think our offering over time has evolved to incorporate more that we can offer, simply because, one, I think clients are looking for that. Two, I think they need it. And if we're setting the right strategy from a user experience perspective, it only makes sense for us to really test that and continue to promote it once the site is live. And I think for us, we try to, what I think our team does really well is setting that strategy very clearly in the beginning, testing the hypotheses that we come up with, and then being able to see that benefit over time, certainly after launch, but with a sound marketing strategy behind it as well. So it really just takes the work that we do in the website engagement and amplifies it on the digital marketing side.
For real, I think that happens a lot also with B2C, because it's kind of stuff that you see on a daily basis. I feel like B2B people, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I might be, but I feel like in B2B spaces, you see people that are more into technical things because of the nature of a business being B2B. But I feel like with B2C, because you're focused on that person who is, shopping from the local cupcake shop, you tend to think in that more mundane way, and you don't think about all of these, like, it feels kind of high level, right?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, in the B2B space, typically what we're finding is sales cycles are much more consultative. They take longer. There's a lot more decision making that, a company would have to go through to engage on a service. If you're looking for something like toothpaste or a toothbrush, that's going to be a relatively quick, decision that you make as a consumer. So I think being able to convince someone who's part of a target audience on the B2B side really takes that extra, level of effort versus needing to experience that on the B2C side. We're looking at quicker conversions than we are in B2C than we are on the B2B side.
Yeah, I think like also just how people are looking for service companies, whatever it is
Sure.
that they're looking for is very different from a B2C perspective than B2B. What I also feel like happens a lot, that I've noticed this trend happening in both spaces, a little bit more on B2C, is a lot of emphasis on social content, specifically like Instagram and TikTok and
Totally.
yeah, like social media, like short form videos. And like I think there's been like an emphasis on this sort of like trendy, like young influencer like type of content. But I sometimes feel like there's a strange approach, because I feel like people kind of just take what they see as viral because it's what they consume on like a daily basis,
Sure.
and then try to put that into a business, and then it doesn't convert. Even
Right.
if it's getting a lot of views, or like the analytics are pretty good, it's not converting. It's not actually giving you any sales, any traction.
Right.
People are
Right.
not purchasing product. Do you find that happens a lot with people? Because I really do. I see it a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there is like this slow and steady rise of, really making use of content in maybe a B2C ethos that's happening on the B2B side. But certainly, yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at something that's more product oriented, most of the time leveraging other channels, which may be the first touch point that a certain customer may have with a product or an offering, and then funneling that back to the site. That's a strategy that's proven over time and in various different products. But I also think that again, it's much easier, I think, to acquire a customer with an approach like that versus the B2B side, which has much more, we'll call it red tape, that a given individual has to go through to actually engage on a service. But yeah, no, I certainly see that as well.
Yeah, no, I see it a lot. I have actually seen B2B businesses kind of tap into it. I don't know what the goal is, honestly. It might be like dumb to not know, but like I genuinely feel like, what are you? Because I feel like the people that I see that are engaging with all of this content are very young, and like these businesses are not.
Right.
I saw Zendesk doing that a lot. Like they were really like doing a lot of videos on TikTok. I don't know if you're familiar with Zendesk. They're a
Yeah, sure.
customer
No, we
service.
use it.
Yeah, I have used Zendesk for work too, and like I was like, well, I mean, I don't see any 15-year-old concerned with like this.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think no, I think I know what you're getting at. It's really for us. It seems like it's more of a brand awareness play. If for
Yeah.
no other reason than this is who we are. This is what we do. That's how we do it. One brand that comes to mind is actually ClickUp, because they've been on Instagram, because I think their content is quite funny. They have like an entire dedicated team just making content, video content, short form video content on these like short little clips and funny, HR moments that happen,
Yeah.
that are obviously manufactured. No one who's 15 really needs to have ClickUp in that same way, the way they appeal to their target audience. But the fact that it's even there and they're doing it and they're understanding that it's a way to engage audiences, even if they aren't, making a kind of a tailored approach to acquiring their target audience member. Still, I think it has its merits. But I do think it's a brand awareness play, and it's nice to know that companies like that maybe won't take themselves too seriously in
They
the
really
digital
humanize
landscape. Yeah, and I think there's something to that too. I think that's a much longer term play. But when you know you need a service like that, or if you're looking for a provider or any sort of platform like that, um, you know, knowing what their content's about, knowing how they operate,
Really
that's worth its
helpful.
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that 15-year-old is gonna grow and eventually join the workforce, and then they'll think of ClickUp when they're 27, and then they're like, oh yeah, this could work. So I
Right.
guess
Yeah.
you're like seeing
Sure.
it for the long run, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also fun to know that brands are gonna, like I said, not take themselves too seriously. I think, there's this maybe unspoken rule that in B2B you have to be very professional. You have to come across
Very
like you are the
serious.
leader in the space, and
Yeah.
you may be the leader in the space, and that's fine. But I do think it's worth tapping into something that is a little bit more personal, maybe a little bit more, to your point, humanized. Because at the end of the day, all these brands have people operating behind them. All these companies are driven by the people that are, behind the brand. So um, there's absolutely something to that. I do think we are seeing a rise on the B2B side with what they can do with content. There's even a client that comes to mind. I don't know if I can really mention it, but they have kind of sub brands of their core brand, and they've been using LinkedIn to kind of really promote how their value proposition with a couple different sub brands, some sub products, um, in a way that's engaging, that's fun, that you wouldn't expect from the type of company that they are. And they're seeing a lot of great movement, great engagement on it as well. And maybe you do create a cult following with the content that you produce, and that's always fun. That's always a nice kind of byproduct. But yeah, I think there's absolutely something to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's companies who have successfully done it, like Duolingo. They have like a cult following of
Sure.
people who are just in. Obviously, they're not a B2B service. It's an app for like language learning, but
Right.
I think there's a lot of merit in what they've been able to do with the amount of like following that they have on social media for just engagement. I can't imagine that it's not successful for them or
Mhm.
lucrative in any shape or form.
Right. And if you're thinking about the content strategically, maybe the content that you're crafting is content that is coming across in a very informal way, but there is some sort of baseline to it that they're tracking for a metric. And as long as they're seeing what's performing the best, what's getting the most engagement, that's valuable data for them to operate with. Maybe it means they create other content, or they tailor their strategy to kind of focus towards audience members who are engaging on that specific type of content. So I'm sure there is an element behind it, of strategy, that it's
Yeah.
not just, but if it is fun and you kind of disguise the strategy that way, and no one likes to be sold to,
Yeah.
um, but if you're able to create a relationship with a user just by virtue of having good content that they appreciate, then you absolutely should do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like you also kind of create that loyalty to your brand through it.
Definitely.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah, I feel like nowadays people I mean I can't think of many brands or companies that should not be on social, even if it's just like
It's a
yeah,
must. Yeah.
some of them should be more than others, probably depending on your service, product, industry,
Mhm.
whatever. But I feel like everybody kind of has to have that. Um, what I think is interesting is that people are using social media more as their search engine when it comes to directly like searching things more than the actual website of the
Yep.
company. So you really have to sort of put that part into, I think, regardless of your company, is you need to make sure that your social media is just as informative as your website.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that, I think that's that's the key bit, because brands are being discovered daily on various different platforms in various different ways by different members of target demographics. And so to not have it seems like a huge missed opportunity. Um, and of course, your website, yes, if the idea is to drive traffic, ultimately get a conversion out of it, great. That has to be optimized as well. But the discoverability aspect of being able to identify a brand, come to come into some brand loyalty, and then obviously take that next step by seeing a product that's live on their site, or taking advantage of the services, reading their thought leadership, whatever it may be. It's just a great conduit to be able to connect users to more of a value proposition. And of course, no, everything is going to be displayed on social media.
No,
um,
it's
so I think that the idea that it's a way to help enable a marketing machine where the website is also just one component of that, is kind of a must, especially today.
Yeah. Well, I think it brings me to another question that I have, which is AI. Obviously, I was going to talk about it. Everybody's talking about it and their mother. But I feel like, with like AI driven search, AI overviews, just in general, AI has changed the space. It's going to keep changing the space. It's impossible to avoid, regardless of your like people's opinions on it, because I feel like it's so controversial. But like with all the changes that happen with people and how they're finding information, do you actually see shifts in brands and the approaches that they have towards not just content, but also like websites, digital marketing? Because I feel like I see some brands changing with that. I see some brands kind of like opposing it and being like, no, like I want to do what I was doing before. What your take is?
It's a good question. So in short, yes. I mean, there are quite a few brands that are adopting it. There are also quite a few brands that are resisting it. I don't know how well that's going to work out. But I think like everything, it's that one element that has a time and a place for being used and has to be used properly in order for it to be beneficial. The thing I think that a lot of companies are trying to rationalize now is how do we incorporate this and how do we make sure that we're working with it so it's not working against us. And most of the time, the thing that's top of mind for a lot of companies who may have really invested in their SEO is artificial intelligence going to completely upend all the work that we've done just simply by the nature of how it operates. And from what we've seen, there still needs to be an adherence to best practices for SEO. So all the content that is being produced, anything that's happening from a technical perspective on a given property, and certainly any sort of sound strategy behind moving the brand forward, that all still needs to be in play. And you can get rewarded through artificial intelligence or artificial search, in that way. But those are still necessary components. It is much more worthwhile to leverage artificial intelligence, yes, for the content, and yes, to be able to kind of streamline your general operation. When it comes to marketing, it's really important to kind of either work with the parameters that come with artificial intelligence, but also factor them into whatever it is that you're working on. If you're building a site and you want to make sure that it ranks as highly as possible, knowing that certain search engines are going to prioritize, better kind of or provide domain ranking authority or reward you for domain ranking authority for content that you've produced. The way you produce that content either should stay the same if you're finding that you are being rewarded for it continually with artificial intelligence, or if you're not and things have changed, then you need to really examine how you're producing content and what you're doing to maintain your own relevance. But I see companies in different ways adopting artificial intelligence. I don't think it's a one size fits all solution. I don't think it should be treated that way. It really needs to be this element that enhances everything that you're already doing. And I know it's been said before by almost everyone, but artificial intelligence is really only as good as the human element that is brought into play to really leverage it properly. And we've seen sites that have been created using AI that just don't perform. So if you need a website, great, like put in your prompt, get a website, get the code, and go live. But there still needs to be an adherence to best practices. And that really comes from the UX side and certainly the SEO side as well, which is why I still think agencies are incredibly relevant, even with the changes that are happening in the digital landscape.
Yeah, I think like because AI is still not at a place where it can completely replace human. I feel like sometimes it'll feel like maybe it has some sort of logic, but I feel like it's not. I don't want to say that it will or won't in the future because I am not an AI expert and I don't.
Right. Neither am I.
Yeah, I don't want to talk out of my ass, but I just mean like at the moment, as of right now, I don't feel like AI is still at a place where it could probably replace that human that human involvement in something or in a product.
Yeah,
or
it's
development of a website.
It's not, and I do think that will change. We will get there, but I don't think it's going to replace it. I really don't think it can replace it completely. I think it's going to make like it already has, really big strides and really facilitate a lot more than you can do with your own two hands. But I just don't see it completely. And here's the other thing, and as I'm thinking through this response too, we've also come across interesting data that kind of suggests that users are able to identify where artificial intelligence may exist in content and are kind of deterred from engaging with that content and possibly with that brand as well. So to the degree that it is able to produce work content, again, it does come down to quality content that resonates. And so long as it's not going to deter users or any sort of customers or anything like that from engaging with a brand, I think that's something that everyone needs to be kind of aware of. It's an unfortunate reality too, because it's such a great tool, and they're all out there for you. But I really have seen what I didn't expect necessarily was the deterrence. For someone identifying, oh, this is artificial intelligence, I don't need to engage with this. It's not real.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I feel like the artificial intelligence thing has kind of like shut people off, but then it's gonna I compare it kind of like to photography. Like when photography got introduced, it was like a huge thing, right? Like video and pictures and like being able to sort of capture something in an image opposed to painting was like an insane technological advancement at that moment in time. And I think you might look back at it right now and think like, well, yeah, but did it really kill painting? Not really, but it certainly like changed it. And like I think that's kind of just the way that the growth with AI is going to continue to be, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but I feel like in very simplified terms, that's just how I feel like that change is going to continue happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's made it easier and it's made it a lot more efficient to produce. But I think we've all kind of come across this at one point as marketers where typically the easier thing to do doesn't always yield the result that you're looking for or hoping for. And so running a system of checks and balances, whatever that may mean for you. I mean, as an agency, that's why we have a QA department, for the website projects that we undertake. But I think if you were to just kind of leave it in AI's hands, depending on what it is, you're probably doing yourself a disservice, not really taking that extra step to check to make sure that it is exactly the way you want it to be. And I would like to hope that brands that have really made an investment in their marketing over, a period of years, decades, even, you can like trust but verify. I think that's probably a good way to operate. Incorporating AI into your general operation, especially with marketing.
I think, I mean, I don't think that it can like completely replace it. My prediction to AI kind of like being, I don't know if this is going to happen again, might be talking out of my ass, but I feel like, like search bots, engines like ChatGPT are going to be, I feel like I keep seeing them getting introduced, right? Like I saw, like now we have Gemini and what's the name of the X one? I forgot, like Rock, I don't remember, whatever. But they have like these type of like that sort of model being introduced in different kind of software services. But I feel like right now I feel like it's only at like these high level companies like Google and OpenAI, like they're doing that. But I feel like eventually it's going to reach a point where like websites are going to have it, like even for like normal businesses, where they're going to have that kind of like I already see bots of like questions and answers and stuff, but it's
totally
you can feel like it's body, but I feel like that level of sophistication is going to be introduced into websites when people are going to go into the website of the business and be like, where do I buy? And it's just going to give you the answer in the same manner. That's kind of like a prediction.
And I do think it's kind of compelling to think about, if there's a way that AI could personalize a user experience for a specific individual looking for something very specific on a site so that they can enable conversion better or something to that effect. I think that's really compelling. I think that's a great use of artificial intelligence. But I also think that there is this, I think, need with how explosive AI has been, where everyone feels they need to incorporate it in everything that they do. We've seen a couple different properties come through that have just been AI, completely out, and it's just no longer meaningful. And yes, you can use it as a chat feature to help a user locate resources or locate specific, especially in B2C, like a return policy or things like that. And that's fine, and that's great. That's a fantastic use of it, because it really just helps trim down the operation for the customer service aspect. And anyone who's may not be a savvy user can find what they're looking for relatively quickly. But if there is ever a feeling of well, we have to incorporate AI because that's what everyone else is doing, I would recommend kind of taking a second look at that approach to see if it's really the right way. But I also think, to your point too, there is this kind of sentiment that AI is reserved for like the big enterprise players. How can a small to medium business leverage AI with their digital operation, and make it meaningful as well? And that's a problem that we come across, in some ways, with kind of the more smaller engagements that we take on.
That would make sense. But I feel like I think right now, because it's so new and like exciting, it's harder to sort of implement. You also just have in general less people who are experts and professionals on it. But I genuinely feel like, it's like a smartphone. But when the smartphone gets introduced, it's like, only the rich people can have it. And like you said, only the big players can have it. And then as time goes by, it's sort of the value, it's not that it lowers, but it's just more accessible. And I feel like that's going to happen with AI, where like it's going to reach a point where it's going to be so accessible that the smaller to mid-sized players are going to have the same amount of access than the bigger ones.
Yeah, and to some degree it is democratized already. But I think it's seen, you can work with ChatGPT and develop images by yourself. That's something a user can do without really much effort. But having it be really relevant for a small to medium business and help them really grow, especially on the marketing side, but really help them achieve kind of the next step in their trajectory. I would really like to see from AI a way to do that can be very easy, to the point where an individual business owner or kind of a manager of marketing can open up something out of the box and bring it into their system, so that they can really push their agenda forward. And I know that there are tools out there that certainly can do that, but I definitely think there's a market for small to medium businesses really understanding how to use AI properly, and that you don't need to be an enterprise to have something like artificial intelligence at your fingertips and be able to leverage it properly.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I'm not an AI expert, so if I said anything in this podcast that was wrong, do not hold me accountable.
The comment section will correct you if they need to.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure
I will, for that matter.
Yeah, I will get the hate that I deserve if I did make the mistake. But James, it's so great to have you on the podcast today. We are running out of time, so I think this is a great note to end it on. But before we finish, I do want to give you a space to plug anything, to tell our viewers where to find you if what we spoke about today resonated with them. Floor's yours.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can certainly go to bigdropinc.com. Part of what we do is really help all different types of organizations, all different types of companies, small to medium businesses, enterprises, you name it, in various different sectors. We don't offer a one size fits all approach. We're also, tech stack agnostic and industry agnostic as well. So if you're looking for it, we likely have done it. But most of our clients are looking for that next step, and they're looking to take their marketing machine to the next level. Usually that's by way of a website. But we're kind of we serve all. And one thing that I think is really exciting, especially for this year so far, is that we've been trying to fly our own flag much more than we have in the past. So definitely check out our socials for kind of the latest projects that we've been releasing, some name brands that I think everyone is really going to dig. But there's so much more to come too. I'm really excited for what our team has cooking as well. But yeah, you can find us at bigjumping.com. I'm on LinkedIn, James Alexander Weiss. Yeah, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I will be adding the links to the description so that people can click them easily. And guys, I will see you on the next episode. James, thank you so much for being here today.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.